All right, what's up and what's going on, everybody? This is Al, and coming in with another one. And this one is basically in 2025, 2026, there seems to be a wave of people moving back home. Young adults, 25, 30 years old, are moving back home because they cannot afford to keep up with the economy. And it almost reminds me, forgive me, I was born in the 60s, raised in the 70s, graduated in the 80s, moved out in the 80s, right? Because the possibility was there, right? For a person like myself and others to actually generate our own little nest egg, right? As far as moving out of your parents' homes and moving on your own. And luckily I was in the right place at the right time, that I was able to sustain a livelihood. Um, it was military, of course, but it worked. And now I'm retired and, you know, got the blessings of my retirement, able to function, keep my feet above water, and able to maintain balance with my life and my structure. But that being said, the people that are my age now, that I was back then at 25 and 30, are not able to keep their head above water. And it's got to be understandable because you take an apartment, for instance. Apartments was something that you rented, either because you like living in apartments, of course, or if you said, we're going to get an apartment, someplace to put a roof over our head, but we're not going to get it where it's so costly that we can't live the American dream of becoming a homeowner, right? So that is the reason why you would get apartments. Now, apartments are a come up for agents, for people that own them. They are charging an arm and a leg for someone to rent their units. And we're talking about multiple units. That's why they're called apartments. These aren't houses. These are called apartments. So you picture everybody paying $2,000 a month for an apartment compared to somebody like myself paying only $1,300 for my mortgage, right? But let's go back some, right? Because like I said before, 25 to 30 are moving back in with their parents. And it's not anything to make you feel embarrassed, at least not in my eyes, because I was talking to my mother the other day, and I remember when I told her, I said, Mom, if I would have decided to just retire and then I would have moved back home with my retirement. I retired from the military in 2008. We did the math, and what it was one of them things where you say, let's suppose for some reason that I got so grounded that I did nothing, right? Because my mom's house is paid off, no bills, right? And let's just say we sat on it and just let it ride, be its own personal investment. That would be hard to do, but what I did was I took my numbers and I just said, if I did nothing except stack it for up to 2026 right now, I would have been over 1.7 something million dollars is what I would have saved. And that being said, that is what the norm used to be for families back in the 70s. A lot of families grew up and never left home in the 70s. I know for sure with my family, we had uncles, aunties, right? Cousins that came and lived with us, lived with my grandmother, lived with other relatives. right? I had a friend I grew up with. They had built extra rooms as the kids got older, his brothers and sisters as they got older, and they all stayed under the same roof, grown, because the job market in the 70s and 80s for people such as myself of color and maybe brown as well, I know it ain't no maybe to it, it is, could not afford to move out on their own because jobs just wasn't paying. And that is what's happening again as we speak. Jobs are shutting down. You're not getting paid the salary that you should get. I just found out that TSA, if I got it correct, hold on for a second. The TSA agent here in Texas, right? There are different numbers, and I think that goes with the cost of living. But because I just looked it up, it said here in Texas, they get paid $47,662 annually, and that's for as of March 2026. In other places, it doesn't state where, but it says it could be 60 to 75,000, with top earners earning exceeding 90,000, right? But like I said, maybe the cost of living has something to do with that. Maybe because of taxes reasons and things like that, they get paid that much. But just imagine you doing this, but not able to afford a house because the numbers just don't jive for you to afford it, right? So, a lot of people that are 26, 30 years old are finding themselves moving back home. Now, I got a stepson, right, who was here, and his job is where it is, but he works from home. But he's in the state, or city rather, the state is Texas, but he's in the city where he can get to the office if need be, meetings and things like that. But he stayed here and he saved a great deal, right, before he decided to move up there. But him finding a home right now is kind of hard. And I kind of told him already, I said, look, you don't have to lose money by paying for an apartment, right? So, it's still up in the air. We never talked about it, but I think he read between the lines where I was getting at. If you don't find yourself a house, then I don't see why would you waste your time with paying a landlord, right? When you're not going to get any benefit from it. There's nothing you can do except chalk it up. When it's all said and done, that's money you lost just to live in a place. And it's not, to me, it's not worth it. Me, myself, when we paid that type of money, I never paid anything like that when it came to an apartment. I think the highest I ever paid for an apartment was $600. And it was comfortable. Had nice space to it, the whole nine. The washer and dryer, I think, was on the complex. As far as my townhome, of course when I had a townhome, and I barely paid $7 for that. And it had a washer and dryer hookup for me to put one in. So I did that. I had a washer and dryer in that. But yeah, the highest I ever paid for anything to stay in was what I'm doing right now, and that's my home, $1,300. As far as the apartment, my lowest was $400. The highest was $600, maybe $700. But other than that, no, I've never paid that much. And I had plenty of money left over when it was all said and done for myself. Today, young people just don't have that luxury or that benefit. You imagine paying $2,300 to live in an apartment when it's all said and done and you don't own it? No, nothing. You're just paying to stay there. And then when time is up, your money left and went to that person that owns it, whatever they get from it, how much ever they get, but they still made profit and you have nothing. So you're losing. But I thought that was kind of a reminder of what it used to be like in the 70s and probably before that, man. We're talking 60s, 50s, 40s. back in those days when culture just was not giving in. And the thing about it is, the thing about today is it's not even a culture problem. It's not racism. There's not prejudice or hate or anything like that. It's just greed. That's what it all boils down to. Greed all the way across the board. From apartments to houses to cars, food, those necessities right there. Because everything else is a want. Everything else is just a want. If you want that, then go get it. But, you know, when it comes to necessities, we're talking about clothes on your back, a nice place to live in that's comfortable. If you need a vehicle to get around in, that food because you got to eat, you got your heat, your AC, things like that. All the rest of that is just wants. The necessities are just what I just named off mainly. But everything else is just a want. And they make that necessity more expensive than it has to be, no matter who you are. No matter who you are, what color you are, everybody's going through the same thing. They may not talk about it and try to act like they're not, but in reality they are, because the majority of the people I've seen moving back home were white with their parents. So let that sink in. They moving back in with their parents. And the parents are welcoming them back with open arms. They're not saying, no, you moved out there, lay in your bed, you're going to have to figure it out. No, they're letting them move back home because they get it. It is bad. Cost of gas, food, right? Utilities. So, yeah, it's getting bad. So, if it ever came push to shove that my stepson or either my kids, if they live in different states, we are here in Texas, but my other kids, they live in different states. But if it came to that situation, like I told them already, you always got a house. You always got a roof over your head. If the push comes to shove and you can't make it, then, you know, just hit me up. It's not going to bother me to tell them, yeah, come on home, you know. But they are maintaining. They're able to keep it going. They have not called me with that type of message to say they can't take it anymore and they ready to pack it up and they can't do it, right? So we haven't had that conversation, not even with my stepson. He hasn't talked to her like that either. So don't let the pride, y'all. Anybody saying this, don't let your pride get in the way. Don't worry about what people think. Your mentality is what's important. You don't want to be messing with your mental state, right? Because today is one of them times where it can really mess with you, right? To wake up and then not know if you're going in to work, if this is going to be your last day. You get what I'm saying? Because people are they're just doing what they're doing and they have no repercussions for it. They don't think about it. They don't care if you got family. They don't care if you got kids, none of that. They don't care if you built up something and you bought a home or whatever. When they ready to let you go, they do it. They do it. And it's crazy. For no reason. For no reason. So anyway, that's it. People are moving back in with their loved ones. And like I said, don't let it be a pride thing that bothers you. If you can't keep up, do what you got to do. Your family loves you. Believe that. So with that said, I'm out. Peace.